Hey, good morning. Steve Weber here. It's American Gumption Morning Show, and this is show number one. Very excited to be joining the team at Spirituality Gone Wild, and grateful that founders Debbie and Karen have invited me to be a host. So today is show number one, and what I thought I'd do today is lay a foundation for what I'm going to do over the next week, and then over the next months, and maybe the next years. We're just going to ride this and see how it goes. So the goal here is to create a morning show where I communicate on a regular basis with people. I interview guests, and I share some of my thoughts and my opinions about the world and about spirituality and about gumption. It's really the American Gumption Show. So what I'm going to do today is go through a whole variety of different topics, and I'll try to lay it out in some kind of a sequence and order. There will not be a guest today, but tomorrow there's going to be at least one guest. And on Wednesday, I'm going to have two guests, Debbie G and Karen Palmer, the founders of Spirituality Gone Wild, will be joining me on Wednesday, and we have two additional guests on Thursday, and they are host of the show. Saf Buxey and Safe Buxey and Josie James, both from the UK. So they'll be joining me live here on Thursday. And Friday, we have two spots that I'm hoping to fill in with some of the other hosts. So, and at the end of this week is the third anniversary of the Spirituality Gone Wild. So 8/8. So pretty important day coming up. So we're going to take this week and we're going to introduce this show, and we're going to introduce some of the guests that are, or some of the hosts that do other shows that have their own shows. And I'm going to be meeting some of them for the first time. I know who they are, but I'll introduce them to you. And as I get my feet wet, we'll share, and we'll talk about what's happening on Saturday, a special day. So I'll be mentioning that later on today and throughout the week. So it's going to be fun. So how's this show going to work? I don't know for sure. Going to just figure it out. Learning how to operate the control board has been a little bit like walking and chewing gum and whistling and skipping at the same time. And I can talk, and I might be able to chew gum and talk at the same time, but whistling and skipping, it's kind of tough. So anyway, hopefully you'll bear with me as I learn the control panel here. So have some little graphic effects that I'll hopefully be sharing and learning how to use and sharing. And there's people who can comment on it. So if you're watching this live and you want to add a comment, please go ahead and do that. And we'll try to get to you guys, from time to time. So anyway, here's what I'm going to lay out today. A couple different topics. Gumption. We're going to talk about gumption, what that is, and how it came to be. We're going to talk about the life lessons from the movie Forrest Gump. Anybody here seen the movie Forrest Gump? Maybe that guy right there? Yeah. So I'll tell you that story on how I was Forrest Gump for a while, and then how I developed 94 life lessons from it. But I'll talk specifically about the three main life lessons that we can all live our life by. I'm going to talk about the Gumption brands, because American Gumption is kind of the parent of a whole variety of Gumption ideas and brands that I've been inventing up over the last few years and specifically the last few months. And so we'll talk about how they all fit in, and really they are different. They're all kind of apples, I guess you would say, but they're different types of apples. And so, the different guests that I have might fit better in the one category of gumption than another. So I'll go through and tell you what my vision is for that. And then we'll wrap it all up and, just kind of close out this show. So hopefully I can think of enough to say for the next hour and share with you. And again, the goal today is just to lay out where we're going with this show. So won't be any guests, just be me chatting away. Maybe what I ought to do to start out with is just sort of introduce what my backdrop is. So it kind of represents part of my life, or the different things I've done. So, and you can see right there is Mr. Tom Hanks, and yeah, he was the guy who played Forrest Gump in the movie. So I was lucky enough that in 1994, I was Forrest Gump for Halloween. The movie came out in July 6, 1994, and then that October, I was Forrest Gump, and I thought that was the end of my Gump career. I put the costume away, and no, that wasn't the end of my career. That was really just the beginning of it. So what happened was in March of 1996, I'm driving around in my car, minding my own business, and I hear fried shrimp, barbecued shrimp. Bubba's naming all the shrimps, and they're saying he's back, and they're going to open a Bubba Gump restaurant down in Monterey, California. Well, at the time, I'm living in San Jose, and Monterey is just down the road, 75 miles. So I thought, I'm going to go ahead and call these people up and see if they need a Forrest Gump impersonator. So that's what I did. I managed to get an interview, and I went down, and they hired me, and I worked for them for 15 years as their Gump impersonator. They opened 22 restaurants over the next few years, and the next 15 years, and then 8 international, so 22 U.S. locations. So I got to travel around the country and around the world, and I got to be Forrest Gump, and it was a lot of fun. So Mr. Hanks here is I owe a debt of gratitude. We're all about gratitude here on Spirituality Gone Wild, and so I have a lot of gratitude for the actor, and for how good looking he is, and how he managed to play a character that captured the hearts and minds of people throughout the world. And then I got to be that character for a while. So then right next to, well, there's a suitcase, little miniature suitcase, and there's a bench that you can't hardly see. I'll have to show you some other time. There's a book up there, Doubles. That's by a friend who wrote a book about impersonators, and I'm featured in that book. And then let's see over this way. Yeah, there we go. We have Montana. I lived in Montana for 10 years, and that was a great part of my life. And then there's Wilson. There he is. Wilson, just because why not? Somebody gave me the volleyball, and it's fun. So I might even talk to Wilson sometimes if I get bored talking to myself. We'll figure that out. The Wheaties box that I appeared on, well, not really, but I ended up getting my photo put on that board. And then over on this side, there's the ping pong paddle, and a license plate from Bubba Gump, and then Quantum Einstein, Quantum Gumption. That's kind of the spirituality side of me. So that's going to be coming out, and I'll share some of that. So that's just the backdrop. Now might change a little bit. We might add some more things as we go along. So let's go ahead and let's talk a little bit about Gumption and how that came to be. And I'll need to share my screen here. Let's see if I am smart enough to do that. I think I am. Here it is. So Gumption. What happened was 2008-9 timeframe. I was coming to the end of my illustrious career as Forrest Gump, and I decided that I needed to kind of start really planning for the next phase of what was going to happen. And a few years earlier, I had met a speaker, professional speaker. I was in a green room, and the guy says, "Hey, you're Forrest Gump." And I said, "Hey, who are you?" And he said, "I'm an author. I'm promoting my book." I said, "Oh, okay." And he said he was a speaker. And I kind of leaned in and I said, "Hey, I was thinking about being a speaker." And he, Mark Sanborn is his name. He was president of the National Speakers Association for a time, and maybe a few years earlier than that. And he said, "Hey, I'll send you a package." And so lo and behold, I ended up getting a package in the mail about the NSA. And I thought, I want to follow up on that. I want to be a speaker. And so the next few years, I really started planning on that. And what happened was I remember I was working with a coach, a guy a couple different people, a couple different coaches, and how do you develop a message and become a speaker? And they said, what do you want to talk about? And I said, I want to talk about personal responsibility. And I remember I got advice that said, do not talk about personal responsibility. Nobody will hire you if you talk about personal responsibility. And I didn't know what I was doing. So I thought, but these people, they knew, they were experts. And so I said, okay. But I went, I really want to talk about personal responsibility. You know how in your heart, you just have, you have like a sense that you're supposed to do something. And so I thought, no, I'm supposed to talk about personal responsibility. And so anyway, no, you can't talk about personal responsibility. I said, I know, I'll talk about gumption. Obviously the Gump thing. I'll talk about gumption, and I'll just redefine gumption to mean personal responsibility. And so that's how gumption came to be. And so my definition of gumption is taking personal responsibility for the way you think, the way you act, your actions, and the way you interact with others. So it's basically, you just take responsibility for your thoughts, actions, and interactions with others. And that was really how gumption became born. It wasn't as simple as just, that I just mentioned it now. It took me, a year to figure that out. But anyway, so now let's back up and talk about traditional gumption. What is, the dictionary? It's kind of two different versions of what gumption can mean. Fortitude, determination, like stick-to-itiveness. You're just like doggedness. You're just going to get something done. It takes gumption to stick with a project and see it through to the end. And so someone who has gumption has the ability to stick with a project. The other thing is common sense. They have the ability to figure things out. So someone with gumption has the ability to look at a situation and approach it from whatever way it takes to get things done. And so it's, kind of more of a common sense thing. So it's kind of either determination or common sense is traditionally what gumption means. But I kind of said, hey, it's taking responsibility for your thoughts, actions, and interactions. So a lot of times I capitalize gumption when I say it's, what you're doing as far as taking the responsibility. And then if it's small g, it's just the traditional thing. So that's how gumption came to be. And I'm going to just, I'm going to add that back in there. And I'm going to just say that the big gear here, function with gumption, the big gear is your thinking, because that drives your actions. And then it connects to this gear over here. Now, why do you think that this gear is not directly attached to your thoughts? Well, that's the interactions. Everybody's their own big gear. And so if you want to reach out to people, you have to, stretch out and go to them. And what happens is when you reach out to people, they come back and they reciprocate. So we'll talk about that. So that's kind of the whole gumption thing and how it came to be. And that took quite a few years to figure that out. So not proud that it took me. I'm a little slow. I'm a little Gump-like. It took me a few years to figure all these things out and to try it. So I was, where we at? We finishing up on the Forrest Gump years, beginning the speaking years. Oh, I moved to Montana. Yeah, I moved to Montana. Can you believe that? What was I thinking when I moved to Montana? Well, I was thinking that I wanted a place to live that was like fun and not as crazy as California. I was in the Bay Area for 27 years. And so in the late 2000s, 2008 timeframe, I ended up going up to Montana and then finished up the last few years commuting down to California with Bubba Gump. And then all of a sudden I'm alone in Montana and the Gump years end. And I have this message that I'm fledgling with, trying to figure out what's going on. And, but I was in a beautiful spot. And so I ended up spending basically 10 years hanging out in Montana, looking at those mountains. This was the house that I lived in, and just just enjoying life and surviving, not thriving, but surviving and figuring out where, what was the purpose. So purpose, spirituality, we all have a purpose in life. We all have something we're destined to do. It's one of the lines from one of the lines from the movie Forrest Gump, when Forrest's mother is dying, she runs in. Forrest runs into her room and says, "What's wrong, Mama?" And says, I'm dying. It's just my time, Forrest." And Forrest says, "Mama, what's my destiny?" And she says, "You're going to have to figure it out for yourself." And so the Montana years for me was figuring that out. And that's, that's not the easiest thing that we can do. And so, all right, I'm going to back up and say, hey, wait a minute. I'm talking about myself here the whole time. That's all cool. That's a foundation, and that's important. But what's this gumption thing? What are we really going with? What is this American gumption? Let's go ahead and throw that on. Change the banner. American gumption. So my vision. So a year ago, I'm in Montana still, and I know that I need to venture back out into the world. And a friend came by in his RV and stopped and visited for a day. And I went out and looked at it, and I'm like, wow, that's cool. And in the meantime, I had been getting rid of all the stuff that I had, because I collected a bunch of stuff when I moved to Montana. I was going to be like a rancher and have a little mini ranch. And I had 5 acres and a couple of barns, and I had all this stuff in it that I was going to do. And I never did any of it. It just sort of all sat in the buildings. And so that dream of Montana was it never worked the way it was supposed to. We'll talk more about that in future shows, but you get to the point where you're like, okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with your life? And so I thought, I got to get out of here. And just like that, just like in a matter of a couple of weeks, I went from, figuring out how I was going to, make the next chapter of Montana work, and then, go and to go, I'm out of here. And so I just got rid of everything last year and ended up back temporarily on the East Coast now. And here we are. We're starting American Gumption. So I remember when I was making the decision to leave Montana, I had an experience where I was listening to the news, and I realized that there wasn't a single thing that the news was talking about that had any bearing on my life. So in other words, the news was talking about stuff that had no relevance to my life, to me. And it had no relevance to anybody that I interacted with. Now, maybe Montana is different, and it is different, but I'm thinking, hey, this is out of touch. People don't care about all this stuff, and yet we do care about it. They present it in a way that it makes it sound important, but it's really not important, and it's really just poison and negativity. And so I thought, why is it that there's all this negativity going on, and it's not helping our world at all. It's in fact, it's making our world a lot worse. And so I thought, I'm going to leave Montana, and I'm going to interview people who are just ordinary Americans, ordinary people, and yet they're doing special things. They're actually the backbone of the country. And all this chatter from the news media and from the politicians is really irrelevant to, most people's lives. And so I thought, why don't we tell positive stories? How come no positive stories are told on a regular basis? How come everything's negative? Everything's just, everything's poisonous. It's like oh, this one did that. Oh, this one did that. And so anyway, I thought, why? I think there's a market for people to hear happy stories, to hear good stories, to hear success stories. And no, we're not a perfect country, but we're a pretty good country, and this is my belief. So Gumption across America is kind of the pickup of my alter ego and my friend Forrest, who ran across the country for 3 years, 2 months, 14 days, and 16 hours, and he just felt like running. And so a year ago, I said, you know what? I feel like I should go out there and meet people again and travel across. So I came up with that idea and that vision of what I can do. And it's like, hey, why not? So anyway, yeah. So what does the American Gumption Project look like? Well, I thought I'm going to get an RV and I'm going to travel the country and I'm going to set up a little interview studio inside of it. And so that became my idea about a year ago. And, but in the meantime, I had all this stuff that was an anchor or an albatross, like this property and these stuff. And so I had to get rid of it. And that took, several months. And so it wasn't until October that I finally left Montana. And in the meantime, my sister living in Pennsylvania, where I was raised, my father had just moved in to the apartment attached to her house. And she said, hey, her kids were gone. And so there was a spare bedroom. She said, why don't you come temporarily stay with us? And so anyway, I've been camping out with family the last several months, and grateful to Eileen and Gary and to my father here, where we've been able to reunite, and hoping my father will become part of the American Gumption story, and I can interview Dad, probably do little pre-recorded segments and bring them in with the show. But anyway, the Gumption Project, traveling around America, just sounds like a fun thing to do. And single guy, never married, so no kids, grandkids kind of anchoring me to one particular spot. And so I'm like, hey, why not? Let's go do that. So that's how American Gumption was born. And they said I had to get out of Montana, I had to leave. And hey, we'll talk about getting rid of all your crap sometime. That's several segments, and I have a dear friend who's a coach and has coached me, and she'll become a regular guest, I hope. And so we're going to have, so back to the show, we're going to have regular guests. We're going to have some one-time guests. We're going to have people who kind of reappear, and everybody will be an ordinary person who is living an extraordinary life and doing something special. And this is my vision. So yeah. So anyway, let's check my list and see if I'm making any sense out of this stuff. So we talked about the Forrest Gump years. We talked about the speaker years, the principles of Gumption. We touched on a little bit, the function with Gumption. So Gumption was my message. And what happened, let's see, I'm looking for a particular slide. Oh, wait a minute. Nope, I'm not looking in the right spot here. Let's do this. Again, this is the walking and chewing gum at the same time. We're going to remove that. So the movie Forrest Gump, I obviously became an expert on that. And a year ago, I created a video series, the 94 life lessons from the movie, based on the fact that it was the 25th anniversary last year. So I do little 2-minute clips and show a little tiny clip of the movie and then talk about why that was an important life lesson. And that's one of the features that I will continue. But I'm not going to mention all 94 life lessons, but I am going to mention the 3 most important life lessons from the movie Forrest Gump. So because this became part of the whole Gumption message. Uh-oh, look at that. There it is. Yeah, the feather. So who remembers the scene where the feather comes and lands at the foot of Forrest Gump to begin the movie? And what did Forrest do? He reached down and he picked it up. And that's lesson number 1. The feather represents the opportunities that come into our lives. And what did Forrest do? He reached down and picked it up. So So in my own life, I've had many, many opportunities, situations that just appeared like magic. I wasn't necessarily expecting them, but all of a sudden, there was an opportunity sitting right in front of me. In fact, joining Spirituality Gone Wild has been a bit of that same story. So, so suddenly I met Debbie G, and I wasn't expecting to meet her, but I did. And I wasn't expecting that when we first met that I was going to be hosting a show less than 4 weeks after we first met. So this is how the feathers come into your life. And then in the movie, Forrest had these opportunities throughout his life. So he obviously picks up the feather at the beginning of the movie, but when he got on the bus as a little boy, who did he meet? He met Jenny. And she said, you could sit down, after all the other children said, can't sit here, seat's taken. Forrest is feeling pretty alone. And then he meets a friend. Jenny says, you can sit here. You can sit here if you want. And it was the sweetest voice he ever heard. And so Forrest sat down, and that's how we meet people. They just magically appear. And when Forrest was running from the boys, chasing him, first they chased him on his bicycle, and then they grew up and they became sophisticated kids, and they had trucks, and they're chasing Forrest, still throwing rocks at him. And he ends up turning onto the football field. And the football coach of Alabama College, University of Alabama, is there recruiting. And he runs down the field, and the coach from Alabama, Bear Bryant, says, who in the heck is that? And the high school coach says, that's just the local idiot. And the next thing you know, we see Forrest playing in college. So that's another feather. That's another opportunity, being at the right place at the right time. And an interesting thing, one of the lessons from the movie, one of the 94 life lessons, is that how come one coach saw the local idiot and the other coach saw talent? So in our lives, how many times do we prejudge who someone is, and someone's an opportunity for us, and yet we don't see the opportunity. We only see what we think we see. So we're going to talk about those kinds of life lessons. So anyway, back to feather number one, Forrest Gump. If you haven't figured out, I've got a little bit of ADD, and I jump from topic to topic. And the goal is to always keep some kind of a thread running through it all. But sometimes I kind of go off on a tangent. So throw a comment in the line there and bring me back to ground zero. All right. Lesson number 2 is, of course, the chocolate box. My mama always said life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Pretty good line from a movie. Excellent advice for a mother to give a 6-year-old boy who's getting bullied in school. That explains away some of the disappointments you have. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. I said that line a million times in the 15 years sitting on the bench. People loved it. And I said it exactly like that. Life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. As I became a speaker and I started talking about it, I realized that that's actually not true. Well, it's true because we're surprised. We don't know exactly what we're going to get. We don't know exactly what's inside of it. But here's what I really believe. Life's like a box of chocolates. You get to choose whatever chocolate you want. You get to pick whatever one you want. And life's like a box of chocolates. You get to choose whatever life you want. So it's all about choice. So that's the second life lesson. Choice. Opportunity, number 1. Choice, number 2. Opportunities, feathers come into our lives. We get to choose whether we actually pick them up or not. So we don't have to pick up every feather. We can't pick up every feather. Sometimes we're holding on to a feather for a long time and it's getting mangy and worn out and it's no longer appropriate. And what would be appropriate and what is appropriate is to let it go. And Montana was all about letting a feather go. I had a dream of living in Montana and never worked out the way I had dreamed it up. And for 10, 12, 15 years, I just hung on to it and, was determined to make it work. And it never really worked. And so finally you go, oh my gosh, it's time to go. I'm done. My work here is done. It's now time to let that feather go. And so one of the things I like to ask people is, what feather are you holding on to that it's time for you to let go of? What dream have you been, holding on to, trying to, make happen, force matter with matter? And so sometimes we just have to let them go. And that's a choice. Letting go is a choice, and a very difficult choice. And my spiritual journey started 10 years ago, 2009 to be exact. And I had always been, somewhat spiritual. I, raised in a Christian family, Catholicism, went to Catholic school for 12 years. And learned a lot of shoulds and shouldn'ts and rules and fear and, things that you have to behave a certain way in order to enter the kingdom of heaven. And so anyway, that was the foundation that I was raised in, and some of it worked and some of it felt pretty good and some of it didn't feel so good. And so anyway, 2009, I ended up taking about a year and entering into my own personal development work. And I'll be happy to share all of that as time goes on. But the short version of it is that I realized, as I was trying to develop my message of gumption and personal responsibility, I realized that I had to actually take a little more personal responsibility for myself. And I had to become a lot more aware of my thinking. So here I am saying, taking responsibility for your thoughts. And here I had that crazy little voice inside my head that was chattering away, telling me all kinds of crazy stuff that was not being helpful. And so I became consciously aware of that voice and started to learn how to tame that and how to take back control of the life and to get rid of some of the programmed messages that were constantly chattering at me. And, so ended up having to let go of 30, 40-year beliefs that had been holding me back. And so that all started in 2009. And I went through a pretty intensive year of introspection and looking in the mirror. And I identified in 2009 a whole lot of stories that were foundational to the way that I was, the way that I was kind of living life on autopilot. I was programmed. And so my subconscious was running the show, and I wanted my conscious to begin to run the show. And any fans of Joe Dispenza or other thought leaders, they talk about the subconscious and the conscious, and they say that you use we use the conscious at about 5%, and about 95% of our life is run by subconscious. So it's all habits. It's all habits, and it's all autopilot behavior. And so even though you might have the right idea for that 5% when you're consciously paying attention, that autopilot is running the show 95% of the time. And hence the same problems, the same issues, the same challenges keep repeating themselves over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And so for me, I said, wait a minute, I have to break some of those. I got to break those cycles. And so you do little by little by little, you go in and you try to reprogram yourself so that your autopilot plays stories and scripts that serve you better. And so, like I said, back to 2009, that was the year that I became, I thought, okay, I got to change some programming here. And here I am trying to develop a speaking message. And the very first thing I realized is that I had an awful lot of work that I had to do on myself. How could I teach what I wasn't even, that I didn't even understand and practice myself? So that began the journey. And fast forward to 2013, and I ended up kind of going back and revisiting some of those key signature stories that I had identified in 2009, and really, like, I kind of pieced it together. And I'll be happy to share that story down the road, and I'm sure I'll get into it. But what happened was I had like this aha moment where I was like, oh my gosh, it was me who was the problem, and it wasn't all the other people. Oh my gosh. Don't tell anybody. It was me. Yeah, it was me. So that was like that was like a smack, like a baseball bat to the side of the head. And then you start to do things differently. You look at life and you go, okay, well, great, moving on. So since then, it's been a progression of, breaking down those barriers and reprogramming and trying to become more conscious of it. And so that's why I'm honored and happy to be part of Spirituality Gone Wild and this group. And so the 3 life lessons from the movie. See, I keep coming back to it. So feather, opportunities that come into our life, the chocolate box, the choices that we make. So opportunities just come into your life, and then you have the choice. Do you want to pick them up? And then the 3rd life lesson is the journey of life itself. And so I use the shoe to represent the journey of life. And what was the movie all about? It was really just about Forrest Gump and his life. He was a little boy, and then he was in high school, and then he was in college playing football. And after college, he met an Army recruiter, and he chose to go into the Army. He had a new opportunity. And then he met Bubba, and Bubba had a dream of a shrimp boat, but Bubba got killed. And then Forrest got shot in the buttocks, and then became a ping pong player when the ball hit him. So the feather bounced off of his head in that case, in the shape of a ping pong ball, and he became a ping pong player. And then he was discharged from the Army, and he became a shrimp boat captain. And he didn't have much luck at the beginning, and he was struggling. Lieutenant Dan joined him, and then there was a hurricane, and then shrimping was easy after that. And so, the story, the journey of life, it just keeps going on and on. And my life has certainly been like that, where I've gone from opportunity to opportunity to opportunity. And all along the way, you choose and you choose and you choose. And so there's these life chapters inside of it. And today's a new life chapter for me. Today's the beginning of a new life chapter. And Montana was a life chapter. And sitting on the bench in front of the Bubba Gump restaurant was a life chapter. And when I was a little boy going to Catholic grade school, that was a life chapter. And when I was in high school going to Catholic high school, that was a life chapter. And then, I worked with my father after high school, and I didn't go to college. And then I ended up moving to California, and I realized I needed to have a better education. So I went back to school in the evening, and that was another life chapter. So now I'm working full time, and I'm going to school at night. And so life chapter, journey, life chapter, journey. And I have a nice graph that I'll show you in the future of how, we just progress through it. And so who are we going to interview? Who are we going to interview in this Gumption across America? Let's dive into that. And I have a comment here. I'm going to check and see. So we have Valentina, who is sending me love and light. Thank you. Namaste, Valentina. Thank you for being here today. This is going to be fun. We're going to have a lot of fun here. So let's go ahead and add this here. So my original vision for American Gumption was to go out on the road and produce videos where I'm meeting and talking to people, real live people in person. And who are those people? Maybe you can see this, maybe you can't, but business owners, solopreneurs, business owners who have small businesses, not Fortune 500 company people, but like people who run and operate businesses, thought leaders. I came from the speaking and the coaching world. So there's lots of those folks that I know, and I'd love to share some of their stories because those people are really leaders and have helped me. And then the spiritual leaders, the spiritual entrepreneurs that spirituality gone wild is all about. And then finally, the awakening people who are on a journey, much like myself, who are awakening to the fact that life doesn't have to be a series of hit or miss opportunities. Life can actually be a lot more choices that we make. And, we can be in charge of it. We can get rid of the old programming and go into the new programming. So I come from this business side of things here, and I'm really shifting more towards this spiritual side of things. So this is the community of people. But back to this here I want to go out and do this, live in the road in that fancy RV. And I realize that, we have a pandemic. We're not allowed we have to socially distance. Oh my gosh. Life is all different right now. Life is like a box of chocolates. I didn't know that we were going to get a pandemic. So anyway, I thought I need to start doing some virtual interviews with people. And then all of a sudden, just like magic, spirituality gone wild shows up and lands right at my foot. And so here I am. I picked it up, and we're going on this journey together. So here now I see spirituality gone wild, the 5-day-a-week show, and these will be people that will be. Here's what I'm envisioning. So we're going to do it 1 hour a day, and we're going to interview guests, and I'm going to do a little riff, and I'm going to talk about stuff. But I'm going to do a long form interview, 30 to 60 minutes with people. And those people will end up being the guests that come on the show for 10, 15, 20 minutes. So American Gumption is going to be like little short interviews with people. This is going to be the long form interview. And when we have these guests on the show, who we've done the longer form interview, we're going to mention it to people. We're going to show them what's going on. So it's all going to tie together. And then we're going to take this out on the road, and we're going to do the same thing, only more in a video produced format. Here's one of the things I've figured out. I have been independent all of my life. I made a choice at about age 12 that I was going to be independent. I'll tell that story later. It's called the roller rink story. Happy to share it. But at age 11 or 12, I said, I'm going to be independent. I don't need anybody else. I didn't sit down and write it out, but I had a situation that occurred, an incident that said, I'm just going to do it on my own. I don't need anybody else. And then I lived my entire life independent. And I finally figured that out. That was that moment in 2013 when I went, oh my gosh, it was me. It was me. So anyway, here's what I figured out. I can't do it alone. I cannot be completely independent. I need others. And so I am grateful to Spirituality Gone Wild for this opportunity to share with you folks and to tell this story. And then the same thing with when I go out on the road, I'm going to need partners. I'm going to find some kind of a production company because I can't set up the camera and do that and record it and edit it and then interview people at the same time and do a morning show. So there's going to be a whole team of people around this Gumption thing. And it's going to, become a small team, but it's going to be fun, and we're going to be friends, and we're going to work together, and we're going to bring stories of positivity and joy and transformation to the world. So that's how I see that happening. So that was pretty cool here that my gosh, right smack dead center, here it is, the morning show. So grateful. All right. Let's go to the next. So I did create a vision, and I'll be posting that on my website, and a mission of what I'm doing. But here's the opportunity, choice, and journey. Here it is, the opportunities that come into your life like magic, the choices that you've made that changed everything. And then the journey of life, the transition from life chapter to life chapter. This is really what I want to talk to people about. This is what every interview that I do on American Gumption is going to be about. It's going to be about some type of opportunity that came into the person's life and everything changed. Or we're going to talk about a choice that they made where everything changed. Or we're going to talk about that transitional moment from one life chapter to the next life chapter. And in every situation between a changing, there's an opportunity that shows up, and then there's a choice that's made. So this is really what we'll be talking about on the American Gumption show. So we are getting towards the last 12 minutes, and I'm going to keep this on time. And now I'm going to just go ahead and talk a little bit about some of the Gumption brands. I'm going to run through this really kind of quick, and I'm going to change the way that I do this. But this is the Gumption brands, and I just created these. So we're going to, look at Speaking Gump as the old traditional one, and then RV Gumption and Global Gumption. Let's go through the list of those. And and see if we can't have, let's see. So I'm learning how this is the walking and chewing gum at the same time. Let's not share that anymore. There we go. So American Gumption is going to be my umbrella brand, and it's going to be what everything fits underneath. And so American Gumption will be the front and center. That'll be where we reside, and all the other brands feed into American Gumption. And here is my original brand, Speaking Gump. And that was the brand for the last 10, 12 years. And so that will continue, and I will continue to work with corporations or industry or business leaders who need some type of positive message and some kind of a change message. And one of the pieces of that that's part of Speaking Gump right now is the change by Gumption. And this is the consulting that I do with people, or where an organization has some kind of dramatic change that they're going through, and they need their employees to go from A to B. We're currently where we are, and we need to shift and go in another direction. So change by Gumption is a friendly way to share that message. So we'll continue that. Now, I said, I'm going to go out on an RV and I'm going to travel the world. So since just in the last few weeks and months, I have met many spiritual entrepreneurs who are living full-time in an RV. How cool would it be if I end up interviewing those people and they became part of this show as I'm out there living and working and broadcasting from the road and interviewing people? So that is how I see RV Gumption evolving. There's a lot of people who do RV shows on YouTube shows, and they talk about, how to hook up, what type of RV to get, how to back up, how to change, the holding tanks and blah, blah, blah. I don't see myself going down that path too much, but I do see myself interviewing those people, and because they're spiritual leaders. And so they will hopefully become part of it. As you might have seen, I'm kind of a tech nerd in the sense that I've created a lot of mind maps and visioning, and I just love to do that. And that started in about 2012. I had an iPad and I did some mind mapping. And what happened was it was a way of getting everything out of my head all at once. And so I had all these things that I'm trying to, this connects to that. And it was like, I would drive myself crazy thinking about it. And then I started putting it down on paper like a drawing program. And I'm not a real great drawer. So I love doing it digitally, because when I drew digitally, I could look at it. The next day I could change something. And then the next day I could change something. And then after a few days, I had it all figured out. And then my mind was able to clear up. and I didn't have to worry about it anymore because it was all down in front of me. So we'll be doing that sort of thing along the way. Bench gumption. For the last 5 years, I did a daily inspiration, Montana daily inspiration, I called it. I took a photo, I embedded a positive message on it and put it out there. And so bench gumption will be the new incarnation of that positivity daily message. And I have a Pinterest page where I have pictures of benches from all around the world. And so I'll probably show a picture of a bench, a nice picture of a bench, have a positive quote, and that'll probably become part of this show here. And we'll do like a closing segment or some kind of a segment halfway through where it's like a minute long and we show a picture of a bench and a positive quote, and maybe I talk about that. So that'll become part of it. Quantum gumption this is the spiritual part of me. This is the part where Bruce Lipton talks about the biology of belief. Joe Dispenza talks about, we are our own factory of pharmacy making things. It's all about our thinking. And I love that. And I've become a student of anything to do with quantum physics, just from the idea that, on a subparticle level, we have the ability to change, and electrons can jump from one place to another. Well, that's what our thoughts do. My belief is our thoughts can directly affect what our outcome of what we create is. And so it really becomes mind over matter. So we'll be going down that path. I almost changed this whole umbrella from American gumption to global gumption because I thought America's too small for what we're doing. So I want to include, people from around the world, because it's not just Americans who are awakening and knowing what's going on. It's the global community. And but because of the restrictions of travel and because of the desire to have this focused in the US and living from the RV, I decided American Gumption does indeed remain the umbrella brand, and global will be when I'm talking to people around the world, because those will be more virtual. Now, how cool is it that the spirituality gone wild coloring is almost identical to the global gumption coloring that I just happened to pick a few months ago? So I just think that's, I think it's just a coincidence. Here's what I believe. There are no coincidences, and we are all connected. There are no coincidences, and we are all connected. Classic rock gumption. Anybody grow up in the late 60s, 70s time frame? Yeah, that's me. And so this is the music that I listen to. So my vision here, this is purely fun. I'm going to meet classic rock DJs around the country, and we're going to sit on the bench and we're going to record 5 or 6 different songs. We're going to talk about it. We'll dub in some of the music over it, and it'll just be about a song that I grew up with that had an influence, or a song that they are strongly influenced by. And so we'll create these little videos and we'll have that. And that's just pure fun part of what I'm doing. So, and then finally here, let's just throw out the member site. There's going to be a member site for American Gumption, and that's where everything will be contained and housed. And if I can, here we go. Let's switch one more screen here. Let's do this. And let's take off that overlay. I whoops. Here we go. Whoops, gotta add that back in. There we go. So here's the speaking gum, Change by Gumption, Technology Gumption, RV Gumption. They all feed into this member site. This is the learning center. This is where all of the information, the videos, will all be connected. And so I've been geeking out the last few months, creating a tech stack that has CRMs and websites and content management and creation and social media. And so we'll be happy to, share some of that as we go along. And so anyway, that's that. So that's pretty much it, folks. This has been a pretty good overview. I think I just removed myself from the show temporarily there. Hopefully I'm back live, and that's pretty much it. So anyway, how you feeling? I'm a little tired. I hope it makes sense. This isn't the way a typical show is going to be. Typical show is going to have like a little tiny segment of me talking, and then like another little tiny segment of me talking, and there'll be transitions that go on, and then there'll be guests that come in. And so I really envision the morning show as a variety show, and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I see myself being a kind of a connector of the different hosts here on Spirituality Gone Wild, and let them kind of showcase what they're going to be doing on their show, because they're really the deeper spiritual thinkers. I'm more of a generalist. I'm a student. I'm a student. I've been like studying this stuff for the last 10 years, and I know that I have lots more to do, and so I can share some of my journey along the way. But I don't see myself being the deep spiritual leader that some of the other hosts on the show are. I see myself as learning from them, and so that's kind of the vision and the plan, and how we're going to hopefully make this all work. So the rest of this week, we're going to have Radence Tyler tomorrow. She's one of our hosts, and Debbie G and Karen Palmer on Wednesday, and Safe Buxy and Josie James on Thursday from UK. And on Friday, we'll end up with a guest or two too. So this Saturday is the 3rd anniversary of Spirituality Gone Wild. So it's a great day, and I'll share a little more of that throughout the week, and the other guests will share about that. So we'll be talking about that. Please come back and stay there. Please like my page wherever you're watching this, so you can watch it every single day. And gosh, I think we pretty much wrapped up an hour here, and I want to say thank you again to Debbie G for handing me. I lost it. For handing me the feather. I don't know where it went. It must have blew away. Thank you, Debbie G, for giving me the gift of being able to share Gumption and American Gumption on Spirituality Gone Wild. And I'm looking forward to collaborating with you and all the hosts as the weeks and months go by, and we all become more friends with this. And so, and I'll share stories of Gumption. I'll share stories of from the road as we get out there, and we'll just have fun with this thing. So that's pretty much it. It's been a great day. I'm appreciative to everybody who joined in today, and hopefully you'll be back tomorrow, and we'll have our first guest, and we'll maybe be a little more organized. It was sort of a all over the board day, but that's the way I intended it. And so hope anybody who stuck through this, God bless you. Thank you. And I will see you tomorrow. And by the way, this is my closing clip. So it's meant to inspire. I think you'll recognize the tune when you hear it. So, all right, everybody, have a great day. See you tomorrow, everybody.